Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode number 2 of Re-Roll. I am your host, Mr. Baz, and today we're going to be taking a look at DC Universe Online. As you can see right here, we're going to start out with my level 15 character, Mr. Baz, an appropriate name if you ask me. And we're just going to fly around, show you a couple things with the game, just to get you a little more familiar with it if you haven't seen it before, just to show you what this game's about, and what I think of it, and all that lovely stuff right here. So we're just go ahead and get started. Now, when you start this game, for character creation, you have, you can choose male, female, then different body types. There's small, medium, large, just like the French fries you get at McDonald's or whatever. I preferred, when I was looking through the different ones, the character I wanted to create, I went with the smaller choice just because it reminds me of I get a very Teen Titans vibe when I see this character. And if you don't know what that show is, well then shame on you. It was one of my favorite shows growing up with Robin, Beast Boy, Slade. Freaking love that stuff. So when I made my character, I saw that and I was like, ooh, definitely have to do Teen Titans character right here. And when you go through the character selection, you get different powers to choose from. There's fire, ice, mental, gadgets, nature, sorcery. Probably missing one or two just because I don't have them all memorized right here, but I chose fire. I've played around with a couple of different powers. I tried ice, I tried mental, I tried gadgets. Fire was the one that I enjoyed the most just because it seemed more solo friendly. I wasn't really planning on playing with a lot of other people or doing constant groups or even really getting into endgame. It wasn't something I planned on doing. Just when I tried it in beta, when I tried it at launch, I knew that this wasn't going to be something I was going to pursue for a long time, but something I play maybe casually on the side if I got sick of whatever other games I was playing. But anyways, with fire, you can, with each different power, you have 2 roles to choose from. It could either be DPS, tank, healer, and controller. And depending on what power you choose, depends on what 2 options are available to you. From what I believe, all characters have the DPS role available, and then once they hit level 10, depends on what they get after that. Fire and ice are the only tanking roles. Mental and gadgets, I believe, have controlling roles, and sorcery and nature are the healers in the game. And unfortunately, those are the only 2 roles that you get for each power. Now, along with the power, you also get to choose a weapon, which is, the fighting style you use when you play the game. I chose martial arts for this character. That's a little bit of showing you what that kind of looks like. With each different weapon, you get different combos, but other weapons include staff, one-handed weapon, dual wield, 2-handed weapons, bows, rifles, dual pistols, brawling, which is pretty much hand-to-hand combat, but really sluggish. Think of the Hulk. That's a perfect example of what brawling would be like. No, that's Marvel. Shame on me. But I mean, those are different things you can choose from, and then you get to choose your costume pieces. Now, although this is the choices you have are less extensive than other games like Champions Online and City of Heroes, the great thing about this game is after you get out of the starting, well, even when you're in the starting area, as soon as you start playing the game, you get to unlock more costume pieces, and you can change them on the fly as you wish. I'll show you a little example of that. One of the menu options you have here is style. As you unlock more pieces, you can switch them out as you please. You don't have to. If you get a piece of gear like, let's say, an antifreeze helm, if you don't like how it looks, you don't actually get stuck wearing it until you get to replace it with something better. You get to swap them out as you choose, and my character so far at level 15 hasn't varied that far away from my original costume, but that's just because that's what I want. Something that is very little in terms of innovation in an MMO, but something that actually makes a difference. I can't tell you how many times playing World of Warcraft, City of Heroes doesn't really count because you're kind of locked to that one costume, but World of Warcraft is one example. Final Fantasy XI is another game I played. Guild Wars, where you get a piece of gear that when you put it on looks ridiculously bad. It makes you look awful. And one thing that I like to do in a game is look freaking badass. Who doesn't? And this game gives you the option to choose how badass you look. If you don't like how that looks, well then change to something else that you have that you don't like. You're always unlocking more and more stuff every day, which is every day that you play, obviously, which is great. I love that, and I wish more games had this kind of cosmetic style changer function. It was really great. But anyways, on to the game. One of the other things you get to choose, you have 3 different movements movement styles to choose from. There's flight, which you can see here. There's super speed, and there's acrobatics. Acrobatics, pretty much think of Spider-Man without the webs, you know, crawling all over everything, running and jumping. If you've seen the cartoon, well, the computer animated Ninja Turtles, you know how they're running along the rooftops? That's pretty much what acrobatics is in this game. It's acrobatics, in my opinion, is probably the most fun when it comes to the movement speeds. Flight is the most direct, so when you want to get to point A to point B faster, flight is the way to go, just because you can fly up in the air, avoid all the mobs that are underneath you so you don't get stuck in combat, and it's just, you don't have to mess around to get to where you need to go. Super speed, I think, is the worst, just because you do actually run into most of those mobs if you're running in the ground or you're hopping from building to building. But the biggest thing that annoys me with super speed is that it clips a lot with street posts, lamp posts, anything that is in your way. If you run into it, you will run up it, and it kind of messes with your camera, and on occasion it can get really, really annoying. But I think acrobatics is the most fun, because when you're running from point A to B, you're actually running in the city. You feel like you're part of the city. You're running around the buildings. It makes you feel like you're part of the environment, whereas flying is a little more out of there, not quite as involved. Excuse me while I take a drink. Better water makes me happy. As far as the city goes, Gotham looks amazing, as we can see here. I think when they made this game, they captured the vibe of Gotham really, really well. It's constantly nighttime, which is awesome. The city is huge, and you know, you feel like you're actually in Gotham City from the comic books or the movies or whatever way you're familiar with Gotham. It makes you feel like you're actually part of the city. Metropolis, I've only been around a little bit. I'm more of a Batman fan, which is why I try to stick in Gotham as opposed to Metropolis, which is more Superman's territory. They're like night and day, literally. Gotham is always night, Metropolis is always daytime. It's brighter, it looks more sophisticated. In my opinion, I actually just prefer how Gotham looks. It looks way better than Metropolis, and if you don't think so, don't agree with me, that's perfectly fine, because I like Gotham. You don't have to. There you go. But anyways, another thing about this game, the graphics are fantastic. They could not have, well, they probably could have made this game look a little bit better, but I mean, it does look really, really good. Frame rates are amazing. You know, once you get past, if you have the machine to run it, you can run it at, you know, over 60 frames a second without an issue. Even with Fraps running, I can get over 70. It's just freaking awesome. I love the graphic style of this game. It really captures the feeling of the DC universe well, in my opinion, which is awesome. Moving on, the combat in this game, you know, they try to focus on more action-oriented combat system for an MMO. Whereas, you know, in other games like World of Warcraft or any kind of hotkey MMOs, where you're sitting there with a rotation and auto attack, this game makes you. It's more of a God of War style game where you're constantly pressing weapon attacks and trying to get combos out there to help fight off. You're not so much more reliant on your powers. You're more reliant on your combat. And we'll just get started with, here's a couple baddies you have to kill for a quest. But you know, you're not just sitting there auto attacking. You're sitting there trying to do these combos. And when you first play this game, or at least when I did, I thought that was awesome. I mean, I was really, really, really loving the combat style. But I mean, after a while, when you play this game for a little bit, like I said, at least for me, you kind of feel the limitations of it. I mean, each weapon style only has a certain amount of combos, and some weapon styles have less than others. Hand Blast is one perfect example. I tried that weapon style, and oh man, in my opinion at least, there wasn't enough combinations with those. And after you play around a little bit, you actually know which combos are better than others. Some combos, after you play around, they don't do as much damage. You know, some combos do stuns, some of them don't, some of them interrupt, but you know after a while, you know, this combo is better than this one. So when you're fighting, you're like, oh, I'm just going to do this combo the entire time because it's really powerful, or hey, I'm going to do this combo because it stuns. You know, I don't want anyone hitting me. This will make me last longer, which is what she said. You notice that after a while, and I mean, if you're a min-maxer, I kind of am. I like to do the most I can do with a character. That might not necessarily be you, but if that is the case, then you'll say, hey, why am I going to do this combo when this one does more damage or does something that helps a lot more? I mean, that's something that you notice after a while. And like I said, since you only have a certain amount of combos, there's only so much you can do. And I mean, I'm at level 15. That's, I believe the level cap is 30. I mean, I'm halfway through the game, and well, at least, you know, the regular game, not the end game. And I'm already noticing that, hey, you know, this kind of gets old after you do this to the umpteenth guy. But one thing too that I noticed when I was playing this game is they have a hit counter, if you notice, in the bottom right corner of the screen. And, you know, the whole point is to try to get as much of a combo as you can. This restores your power, your energy that you use to use your powers. And you want to try to get that going as high as you can. But if you use one of your powers, it resets that completely. You know, it starts over from 0. And I'd figure that with a game that tries to make it, you know, very combo friendly, that you'd want to try to synergize your superpowers in with your weapons. Because, I mean, how many superheroes do you see just use their fists and not their powers? You know, Batman's excluded just because he's a little bit different. But any superhero that has powers, how often do you see them not using their powers strung together with any kind of other fighting? I mean, I don't really see that often. Well, in comic books I've read, maybe you're not as much of a nerd as I am, which is fine. But you'd figure that, you know, you do that more, that you try to make it synergize more, which is not the case here. But, you know, that's just the one thing I noticed. I mean, a couple other things too. The quests are very similar. They're the standard run, kill X amount of Y, run here, get this, you go here and save this person. Very, very standard. Nothing too bad. But I mean, they do. As opposed to where other games they have like 5 quest givers that give you all quests that are in one area. This one tries to streamline it and makes it so you go to this area from one quest giver, you have to do a couple things. Like we just had to kill Poison Ivy's poison guys, and we also have to try to free Cocoon citizens. I mean, you see that a lot in this game. Oh, that was interesting. Went here to kill somebody and they disappeared. As I take another drink of water. Anyways, you see that a lot here where you go to one area and you have multiple objectives, which is kind of nice. It keeps you from trying to like get tunnel vision, saying, oh, I only have to do this thing. Okay, now I have to do this thing because this thing's completed when it's all in the same area. This makes it a little better in my opinion. I mean, the enemy models are usually the same, which is fine. You know, you kill the same amount of people, the same kind of guys over and over again in one area and move on to another where you get different kinds of enemies. But I mean, based off of a comic book, I don't see a problem with that. Henchmen are always the same. If you read any kind of book or see any kind of movie, they always have Nameless Thug number 3. Always. So that's, in my opinion, that's fine. As far as grouping and dungeons go, their version of dungeons are called alerts, and you start to get them at level 10, I believe. I think it's Area 51's the first one. I played through those a couple of times. I've only done Area 51. I haven't tried the others. But from what I gather so far, it's very, very chaotic. It's not as structured. I mean, you do require a tank and healer, but when you try to auto queue for those, sometimes you get a group where there's one tank, one controller, and the rest are DPS. So you don't even have a healer. Or at times where there's one tank and 3 DPS. I mean, I don't know if it's something that's broken with the system itself, or that's the way it, if it's working as intended. But that seems really, really odd. Sometimes you get a group where you can't beat a boss just because you do not have the heals required to heal you.